However man's mind may tire or fail his flesh, a will prevails, cancelling his conscious choice. The goal recedes, a bournless vastness calls, retreating into an immense unknown. There is no end to the world's stupendous march. There is no rest for the embodied soul. It must live on, describe all time's huge curve. An influx presses from the closed beyond, forbidding to him rest and earthly ease. Till he has found himself, he cannot pause. A light there is that leads, a power that aids, unmarked, unfelt, it sees in him and acts. Ignorant, he forms the all-conscient in his depths. Human looks up to superhuman peaks. A borrower of supernature's gold, he paves his road to immortality. The high gods look on man and watch and choose today's impossibles for the future's base. His transience trembles with the eternal's touch. His barriers seed beneath the infinite's tread. The immortals have their entries in his life. The ambassadors of the unseen draw near. A splendor sullied by the mortal air, love passes through his heart, a wandering guest. Beauty surrounds him for a magic hour. He has visits of a large revealing joy. Brief widenesses release him from himself, enticing towards a glory ever in front, hopes of a deathless sweetness lure and leave. His mind is crossed by strange discovering fires. Rare intimations lift his stumbling speech to a moment's kinship with the eternal word. A mask of wisdom circles through his brain, perturbing him with glimpses half divine. He lays his hands sometimes on the unknown. He communes sometimes with eternity. A strange and grandiose symbol was his birth, and immortality and spirit room and pure perfection and a shadowless bliss are this afflicted creature's mighty fate. In him the Earth Mother sees draw near the change foreshadowed in her dumb and fiery depths. A Godhead drawn from her transmuted limbs, an alchemy of heaven on nature's base. Adept of the self-born, unfailing line, leave not the light to die the ages bore. Help still humanity's blind and suffering life. Obey thy spirit's wide, omnipotent urge. A witness to God's parley with the night, it leaned compassionate from immortal calm and housed desire, the troubled seed of things. Assent to thy high self. Create, endure. Cease not from knowledge. Let thy toil be vast. No more can earthly limits pen thy force. Equal thy work with long, unending times. Traveler upon the bare, eternal heights, tread still the difficult and dateless path, joining the cycles with its austere curve, measured for man by the initiate gods. My light shall be in thee, my strength thy force. Let not the impatient Titan drive thy heart. Ask not the imperfect fruit, the partial prize. Only one boon to greaten thy spirit demand. Only one joy to raise thy kind desire. Above blind fate and the antagonist powers, moveless there stands a high, unchanging will. To its omnipotence leave thy work's result. All things shall change in God's transfiguring hour. This way we're reading? Yeah?
Yes. However, man's mind may tire or fail his flesh. A wind prevails,
Cancelling.
cancelling his conscious choice, the goal recedes the boundless vastness calls, retreating into an immense unknown. There is no end to the world's stupendous march. There is no rest for the embodied soul.
And one more line.
It must live on this described at times huge curve.
Yes. So man's mind may get tired, and his body gets tired. His body doesn't have the strength, it fails, his flesh fails. The mind tires, the flesh fails. But however much that happens, there's a will that prevails. That will cancels out the conscious choice of human beings. That highest will, that is the will that prevails. When we make progress, we see that the goal is further away than we thought. It's like when we're climbing a steep mountain. We see the top, but when we reach the top, we see that it isn't the top. We have to go further. So it's the same with humanity and our goals. The goal keeps on. As we achieve something, we see the real goal is further on. And there's actually a boundless vastness calling. A bournless vastness, something with no border, no limit. That vastness is calling us, it keeps retreating into that immense unknown. And she says there's no end to this stupendous, this tremendous, huge march of the world. And there is no rest for the embodied soul, for the soul in a body. As long as the soul is in a body, it can't rest. It has to go on progressing and moving forward. It has to live on. The soul that has accepted this task of embodiment, even when it leaves the body, when the body dies and the soul has some rest in the psychic world, it has to come back again. It has to live on, and it has to follow the whole huge curve of time, curve of involution and evolution. It has to follow, describe in the sense of drawing in its own experience, that huge curve of time. Dhanalakshmi?
An influx presses from the closed beyond, forbidding to him a rest and earthly ease. Till he has found himself, he cannot pass.
So there's an influx, there's a force flowing in from what seems to be a closed beyond, something beyond that we can't access. To us it is closed, but still that influence, that flow of energy can come pressing down on us. And that's why we can't ever feel for long at ease. We can't rest for long because that influence is pressing on the soul and always driving it forward. So, to the embodied soul, rest and earthly ease is forbidden. Till he has found himself, he cannot pause. It has to go on and on and on.
A light there is that leads, a power that aids. Unmarked, unfelt, it sees in him and acts. Ignorant, he forms the all-conscient in his depths. Human, looks up to superhuman peaks. A borrower of supernature's gold, he paves his road to immortality.
So man is not alone. We are not left alone in this scheme. Sri Aurobindo tells us many times, no? So there's a light that is leading the soul, and there's a power that is acting and organizing things so that each of us learns everything we have to learn. It is unmarked. We don't notice that light and that power. When you mark something, you notice it. It's unnoticed. It's unfelt. But still, that light and that power is in a way in us. And in us it sees, it sees where we have to go. And it is that which really acts. Whatever we think that we are choosing, that will is prevailing, cancelling our conscious choice. Man is ignorant, but within each of us, the all-conscient is forming, is being shaped in the depths of our consciousness, shaping itself. Our experiences, our lives, our dramas, they form that all-conscient in our depths. Man is human with all that that means, all the limitations, but human beings can look up to superhuman peaks. And in a way, man, through his soul, is a borrower of supernature's gold. This gold that is the truth, the gold that is pure, incorruptible, lasting. No? It's the symbol of the truth. So on the higher levels, there is not only super conscience, there's also super nature. And that gold, somehow we can borrow from it or draw on it and pave, the soul can pave its way to the immortal state. Yuli?
High thoughts look on men and watch and choose today's impossibles for the future space.
Continue.
His trenches trembles with the eternal touch. These barriers see beneath the infinite thread. The immortals have their entries in his life. The ambassadors of the unseen draw near.
Yes. So those high gods up there are looking at man, watching, and they are choosing everything that's impossible today as the base for the future. They're working to bring about those impossibilities. So as part of this influx, this influence, human beings are so short-lived. We are transient beings. But something in us gets touched by the eternal. And that may make us tremble. It may be scary. It may be frightening. But through those difficult, challenging experiences, our barriers give way. They cede. They give way. What feel like limitations, and we think, oh, I never could do that, impossible. We find gradually that those impossible things are becoming possible because it's the infinite who is pressing forward in us, through us. Beings from the immortal planes, they are able to enter into our life, work on it, influence it. And the ambassadors are the ones who represent another power, another country. They come and represent it. So those ambassadors of the unseen, bringing messages, bringing gifts even, they come close, they draw near to human beings. And Tim.
A splendor sullied by the mortal's air, love passes through his heart, a wandering guest. Beauty surrounds him for a magic hour. He has visits of a large, revealing joy. Brief widenesses release him from himself, enticing towards a glory ever in front, hopes of a deathless sweetness lure and lead.
So sullied means dirtied, made dirty. There's a splendor. Love is it's something divine, splendid, but when it passes through the human heart, it gets sullied, gets dirtied by this mortal air, the air of material existence, dominated by death and separation. But still it comes to us and passes through our hearts. It stays with us for a while as a guest and then moves on. There are wonderful hours, magic hours, when we become aware of beauty all around us. There are moments when we see vistas, big views, panoramas opening up in front of us, of a large, revealing joy. That joy is one of the marks of our inner being. And when we can feel that joy, we see things more truly. And perhaps there are moments when we forget ourselves altogether, and we experience for a short time brief widenesses. We get released from these limiting selves that we normally are. And hopes, something gives us the hope of a possibility of a deathless sweetness, an eternal delight. Those hopes come and they attract us, they entice us, they inspire us and attract us towards that glory which is always in front of us, which is always retreating. Those hopes of a deathless sweetness, they lure us, they attract us, and then they are gone and we miss them and we long for them, and then they come back and lure us some more. Lela.
His mind is crossed by strange discovering fires. Rare intimations lift his stumbling speech to a moment's kinship with the eternal word. A mask of wisdom circles through his brain, perturbing him with glimpses half divine.
Yes, thank you. So sometimes there are these flashes through our minds. Suddenly we understand something without knowing how it has come. His mind is crossed by strange discovering fires, those moments of discovery when we wake up and we say, Eureka, we've discovered something new. And other kinds of inspiration come, even words, messages. Here it is intimations. An intimation is some kind of a message or a hint. These are rare intimations. They don't come often, but perhaps when they come, they inspire our speech which is normally stumbling, which with difficulty can express itself. But just for a moment, that inspired speech comes and it can in some way express something of the eternal truths, the eternal word. And then there's this word mask, spelled M-A-S-Q-U-E. It's connected with the M-A-S-K, the mask that we wear on our face. When people put on masks and perform a dance or a drama, that is this mask in this sense. So this is a mask of wisdom. So there are beings somehow disguised, no? But that dance or that drama, which is an expression of wisdom, even though it's dressed up and disguised, it circles, I think this is connected with the dance, through his brain, and that disturbs the mind with glimpses of things that are half divine. Mahalingam.
He lays his hands sometimes on the unknown. He communes sometimes with eternity. A strange and grandiose symbol was his birth, and immortality and split room and pure perfection and a shadowless bliss are his afflicted creature's mighty fate.
So the first two lines, they belong with what Lela read, no? It's these experiences that come to human beings. Sometimes a human being may be able to clasp or embrace the unknown for a moment, and there can be moments of communion with what is beyond time. So then she says that the birth of a human being or of humanity is a strange symbol. And it's a grandiose symbol. It's a symbol which has a very huge, important significance. Human beings, we are afflicted creatures. But she says, although we are afflicted, although we suffer, although we have to face so many difficulties, our fate is a mighty fate. We are destined to have immortality and all the space of spirit, the infinite space of spirit, and pure perfection, this solid air. We will experience pure perfection and shadowless bliss. So there's a strange significance about this embodied soul, the divine embodying himself in this imperfect creature. But the fact that he's done it, that gives this fate of fulfillment to all these souls who now have this role of being afflicted human beings. Eve?
In him, the earth mother sees draw near the change, foreshadowed in a dark and fairy depths. The Godhead drawn from her transmuted wings, an alchemy of heaven and nature's ways.
Thank you. So in him, in man, the Earth Mother, who has toiled through all these eons, the whole spiral of evolution, she sees coming nearer to her that change, that great change, which is foreshadowed, somehow indicated in her dumb and fiery depths. We may wonder what this line means. I think it was yesterday on the television I saw that they have measured the heat of the Earth's core, and it is much hotter than the surface of the sun. So it means in the core, in the fiery depths of the earth, there's all that energy, all that heat and light. It's out there burning in the sun, but it's also burning in the depths. So that's perhaps a symbolic indication of this transformation which must come, which will be expressed by, he says, a Godhead, an individual divinity drawn out, pulled out of her limbs, the limbs of earth. They will get transmuted and they will give birth to a divine form. This whole process is an alchemy. Alchemy was the forerunner of science. It was somehow an intuition that there must be some uniting oneness which makes it possible for everything to be turned into gold. Gold as the symbolic expression of purity, pure perfection and truth, undying truth. So the alchemists, they were seeking for that philosopher's stone, what would be that substance that could turn everything to gold. Or the process, alchemy was the beginning of chemistry, because they tried certain processes that they thought they can transmute base metals into gold. But it was a kind of symbolic search. They wanted, of course, to have earthly gold, material gold, but there was also a kind of background in alchemy that was searching for a truer consciousness and substance. So that process of a Godhead being drawn out of this earthly matter, this material principle, this will be an alchemy of heaven on nature's base, this base here, material base. James, would you read?
Adept of the self-born, unfailing line, and leave not the light to die the ages bore. Help still humanity's blind and suffering life. Obey thy spirit's wide, omnipotent urge.
So this is her adesh to him, her command. So she says, I'm not asking you to merge in the formless, in the supreme. She says, you are an adept, an initiate, a highly developed being carrying a great deal of knowledge. And she says that you are one in a line, in a series, the self-born, unfailing line. So this line this heritage will not die out, and those adepts who are in this line are self-born. They haven't been compelled to be born. They have accepted birth by their own choice for a purpose, to help the divine work. So she says that's what you are. You are an adept of this self-born, unfailing line of avatars and vibhutis, sons of God. So she says, don't withdraw. Don't let the light die, this light that the ages have been carrying, the light of aspiration and hope. Go on helping the blind and suffering life of humanity. That is the all-powerful urge of your spirit. So you should obey that. That is your svadharma. That's what your self-being wants to do. That's what you should go on doing. Patricia.
A witness to God's pardon of the night. It gleamed compassionate from immortal calm, and housed desire, the troubled sea things. Ascend to thy high self, create, endure. Cease not from knowledge, let thy toil be vast.
Thank you. So she says, your spirit has witnessed, has seen this a parley It's a kind of negotiation, a conversation, but also maybe a negotiation, working out of an agreement or an attempt to work out an agreement between God and the night of darkness, of unconsciousness. So your soul has seen that interchange between God and the night, and it has chosen, it has leaned compassionate. Out of compassion, it has leaned down from its state of immortal calm and accepted to be human here on earth and to house desire. Desire, which is the troubled seed of things. There's always some trouble when we want something, there's some disturbance, no? But it's through that wanting and wishing and longing that things develop and happen and change and grow in the world, in this evolutionary world. So she says, assent, accept, say yes to your highest self. Go on creating, go on enduring all the difficulties. Don't give up this search for and use of knowledge, and go on working in the universe. Let your toil go on making all these great efforts, working for the divine purpose. Francesca.
No more can earthly beings spend thy force. Equal thy work with long unending times. Traveler upon the bare eternal heights, tread still the difficult and deathless path, joining the cycles with its austere curve, measured for man by the initiate gods.
Thank you. Yes. So she says you've achieved so much that you are not bound by earthly limitations anymore. Your energy, your strength. To pen means to put limits, fences around something, no? So earthly limitations can't limit your force anymore. So let your work, your achievement be equal with the work of time. Let it go on forever. She says, you're a traveler here up on these bare eternal heights, but still go on treading this difficult path, this dateless path, which seems to have no beginning and no end. This path that joins all the cycles, the eons of time, with its austere curve. It's a very plain curve. That curve has been measured for man, for humanity, by the gods who are initiates. An initiate is one who knows the secret knowledge. It's like an adept, one who's been granted the secret knowledge. So these gods know the secret knowledge, and accordingly they have plotted this curve of destiny for humanity. So we don't know how long it will take. All the difficulties are still to face. But she tells him, please go on treading this path. Go on connecting your aspiration with humanity. And then she gives him a promise. Birbal, would you read that?
My light shall be in thee, my strength, thy force. Let not the impatient Titan drive thy heart. Ask not the imperfect fruit, the
Partial.
price.
So she promises, I will be with you. My light will be with you, and my strength will be with you. So she says, don't be in a hurry. There's something titanic in us which wants to achieve everything immediately, but don't let that impatient Titan drive thy heart. Be patient, and don't now demand the imperfect fruit, the fruit that is not yet ripe. Don't ask for a prize which is not the real full prize. You could have something now, but don't ask for that now. No? Then she gives him an alternative. Renana.
Only one bone to curtain the spirit's demand. Only one joy to miss the kind desire.
It's thy, only one boon to greaten thy spirit demand. Only one joy to raise thy kind desire. So this thy, she's speaking to him. This is the second person singular. Sri Aurobindo uses this throughout the poem whenever one person or one being is speaking to another, singular. So she says, only ask for one boon. You have come all this way, you have met me. I know the boon that's in your heart. I can't give you that. Only ask for this one boon, this gift, to greaten thy spirit. Let it become even larger and wider. And desire only one joy, the joy of lifting up your kind, your race, the human race. This is what she asks of him to do. And then she again gives him a reassurance. Nargis.
Of our blind faith and the indigenous powers, ruthless there stands a high, unchanging will. To its omnipotence, yield thy words result. All things shall change in God's unsubdued honor.
So she says it looks like human beings are in the grip of blind fate. Things seem fixed without reason, and there are antagonist powers that are hostile, that are trying to prevent the fulfillment. But beyond those, beyond the power of fate, the power of cause and effect maybe, of karma, beyond those hostile powers, there's this high, unchanging will, which is the original will that has set everything off. No? That is there. It doesn't move. It doesn't change. It is always there. And that will is omnipotent. It is all-powerful. So she says, leave the result of your work and your effort to that omnipotent will, which has willed the whole course of the universe. And she promises him that as a result of that will, everything is going to change. all things shall change. They will change in that hour when God has decided that they shall change. That divine, that hour of God when everything gets changed, transfigured, turned into its most divine form. But this is not the end of the canto. There's more. And Asvapati will win another boon from the mother. So we'll start to read about that next time. However man's mind may tire or fail his flesh, a will prevails, cancelling his conscious choice. The goal recedes, a bournless vastness calls, retreating into an immense unknown. There is no end to the world's stupendous march. There is no rest for the embodied soul. It must live on, describe all time's huge curve. An influx presses from the closed beyond, forbidding to him rest and earthly ease, till he has found himself, he cannot pause. A light there is that leads, a power that aids, unmarked, unfelt, it sees in him and acts. Ignorant, he forms the all-conscient in his depths. Human looks up to superhuman peaks. A borrower of supernature's gold, he paves his road to immortality. The high gods look on man and watch and choose today's impossibles for the future's base. His transience trembles with the eternal's touch. His barriers cede beneath the infinite's tread. The immortals have their entries in his life, the ambassadors of the unseen draw near. A splendor sullied by the mortal air, love passes through his heart, a wandering guest. Beauty surrounds him for a magic hour. He has visits of a large revealing joy. Brief widenesses release him from himself, enticing towards a glory ever in front. Hopes of a deathless sweetness lure and leave. His mind is crossed by strange discovering fires. rare intimations lift his stumbling speech to a moment's kinship with the eternal word. A mask of wisdom circles through his brain, perturbing him with glimpses half divine. He lays his hands sometimes on the unknown. He communes sometimes with eternity. A strange and grandiose symbol was his birth, and immortality and spirit room and pure perfection and a shadowless bliss are this afflicted creature's mighty fate. In him the Earth Mother sees draw near the change foreshadowed in her dumb and fiery depths, a Godhead drawn from her transmuted limbs, an alchemy of heaven on nature's base. Adept of the self-born unfailing line, leave not the light to die the ages bore. Help still humanity's blind and suffering life. Obey thy spirit's wide, omnipotent urge. A witness to God's parley with the night, it leaned compassionate from immortal calm, and housed desire, the troubled seed of things. Ascent to thy high self, create, endure. Cease not from knowledge, let thy toil be vast. No more can earthly limits pen thy force. Equal thy work with long unending times. Traveller upon the bare eternal heights, tread still the difficult and dateless path, joining the cycles with its austere curve, measured for man by the initiate gods. My light shall be in thee, my strength thy force. Let not the impatient Titan drive thy heart. Ask not the imperfect fruit, the partial prize. Only one boon to greaten thy spirit demand. Only one joy to raise thy kind desire. Above blind fate and the antagonist powers, Moveless there stands a high, unchanging will. To its omnipotence leave thy work's result. All things shall change in God's transfiguring hour.